Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Bryce. I'm Matt.
Hey, hey, Pat. How are you today?
I'm doing well. They're busy. You got in touch with me and let me know that you'll be delivering the presentation today. So would you like me to make you host?
Yeah, probably. I've got, yeah, that would probably streams. There we go. I am, admit that. There we go. There we go. Can you see my red screen up on the?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead. Yeah, let me introduce myself. And I appreciate that. Thank you. My name is Bryce Palmer. As you had mentioned, I work for Armed Forces Insurance. I am their Assistant Vice President of Affinity Programs, which can be a mouthful, as you can tell. Basically, my job is to work with partner companies of ours. I do business-to-business work. I work with nonprofits and really anyone else out in the veteran and military sector to try and find like ways where we can either help with insurance, help educate on insurance processes, discuss different things. So I do a lot of talks, a lot of educational videos, as well as work with companies that are directly working with veterans and military folk. Our company itself, Armed Forces Insurance, has been around, 134 years, going on 135 this February. We were founded by military members here at Fort Leavenworth, which is where we're based out of. And we have been assisting military and veteran personnel ever since with their personal insurance needs. And in recent history, and in 134 years, recent, can be a while, but I think about 5, 6, 7 years ago, we got into the business side of insurance to help those of you out there with small businesses with those insurance needs as well. So I'm excited to be here. I am a licensed agent, although I don't say I've moved on from that role because I still do it, but I am a licensed agent. And then we do have, like you said, Dale McCary was who you were speaking about earlier, is in our business department, and he is an excellent resource along with Elizabeth Diaz there. So we'll talk a little bit about how to get connected with them if interested. But today, yeah, I'll just, Pat, am I okay to just run in?
Yeah, please do. I just made a quick note. I put a note in the chat. If anybody has any questions for Bryce, just put those in the chat and then we'll address those at the end. I'll keep track of all of that.
Awesome. That sounds great. So yeah, what I want to talk about today is this is going to be a general, I'll say a 40,000 foot talk on small business insurance. For those real seasoned veteran business owners who have a great plan, have an agent they're working with that are, hey, I've got this covered. This hopefully will at least go, oh, I didn't think about that insurance, or maybe I need to check into that, because I'm going to go over kind of the brief overview of everything. For those who are just coming on, starting out, maybe you're getting out of the military and looking at starting a business, maybe you've got one going and you're really not sure where to go or who to turn to or what coverages you might need. I'm going to gloss over a bunch of, we'll go over quite a few, the ones I think are important, some of the others that might be out there, and just kind of toss that out so that way you're aware of it. You can have that conversation with your business insurance agent, or, again, feel free to reach out to our experts to see what you need and what you don't need. But education is key here, making sure you are aware of what's out there, what coverage is available. And I bet I'm going to get some questions on some topics that are front of mind today, that those things may or may not be covered. So we'll jump in and see where this takes us. But my goal is to hopefully give you a little more education than you had before, and we'll see where that ends up. But earlier I did get into who we are. AFI, again, founded by military leaders. We are still governed by them also. So for 134 years, military leadership, or retired military leadership, has been setting our focus and our goals, making sure that we are honoring and serving the military members and veterans that are out there. Because our goal 134 years ago is the same today, and it's to protect those who protect us by protecting their personal property, trying to provide the best value for that, and making sure that we have those products out there available to you all. So being the oldest As far as I know, the oldest military insurer or military and veteran insurer out there. We have strived to do that 134 years, and we hope to do it for 134 more. But let me jump in as a small business owner. I think the biggest, a couple key points or the things to understand is, one, understand the exposures you face. Everyone on this call who has a business, everyone on this call who's thinking of starting a business, anybody who watches this, each business at each location has its own unique exposures. Your business, your exposures might be similar to the person or your competition across the street or down the hall or in another company, but every company has a different exposure set. So and this is something that, this could be a workshop we could just do on its own, but trying to figure out what those exposures are that you face is one thing that you want to have that conversation with an insurance professional on. You want to have that conversation with, if you have a legal team, well, you might have a legal team, but you have somebody that you can ask some questions to about, hey, what do I need to protect myself from? An accountant, a tax preparer. There's all kinds of exposures you can face. So having that conversation with an insurance agent, like you would a tax preparer, like you would a lawyer, is very important to have. Two, a lot of people see insurance as they see it as another bill to pay. And let's face it, you gotta have insurance for everything. You gotta have it for your cars. If you have a mortgage on your house, you gotta have it on your home. People have life insurance. It goes on and on and on. In business, yes, it is something you need because you want to protect yourself. But I always say, look at it as a strategic asset. This is something that can help you protect you against a claim that could come in, either a liability claim, which is something where maybe someone's injured on your property, or a product that you make or advice you give doesn't go quite the way you thought it would, and you end up in a lawsuit, or it's there in case a storm comes through and damages your building or your business. But it is a strategic asset to allow you to continue either operation or income flow or protection against liability if that occurs. Because a lot of businesses, when they look at what a business is, how protected they are, whether it might be getting a loan or applying for different opportunities, they're going to look at, do you have that shored up? And that can be an asset to you, not just a dollar amount going out the door every month or every year for an insurance premium. And then finally, protect your business and your family. Because like I said, no matter how you have your business structured, no matter how, you try to make sure you're like, oh, and that won't happen to me. I can tell you that bad things happen to really good people all the time. And so just making sure that you do as much as you can to protect your business and your family is important. So real quick, talking about business structure, I'm going to go through a real brief business structure of what we might see out there and how that risk might pertain to you and your family. So there's 4 basic structures that you're aware of. There's sole proprietorship, limited liability corporation, a regular big corporation as it might sound, and then a partnership or joint venture. The 4 I'm just going to touch on briefly. And again, I'm not advocating for any one of these. There are advantages and disadvantages to all. This is simply just how this could affect you based on what you're set up as. So the first business type that you might be out there, and again, if you have a business, you know which one you are, but if you're thinking of starting a business, these are different structures you could have. The sole proprietorship or the sole proprietor is the most common we see, especially in the small business realm. And what that is someone who just decides one day, hey, I'm going to start fixing lawnmowers or small engine repair, and they start doing it. Maybe it's out of their garage, or they get a small workshop somewhere. Maybe they're going to start a lawn care business. Maybe they want to start an accounting office, any type of health and wellness office. They want to have a little store with antiques, whatever it is. A lot of them will just set up as a sole proprietorship because it's the easiest. You don't have to do anything. You just start your business. The problem, or I won't say the problem, and the reason it's so easy is because there's no separation of personal assets and business liability. There's no separation of those two. So what you own, the business owns, and what the business owns kind of technically, is yours. So anybody who has this type of business, like my wife has she is at a, what do they call those? No, it's a good thing she's not here. She does executive assisting. So she helps in numerous businesses all over the US as an assistant, doing whatever they need her to do. She does all kinds of things. She works for a landscaping company here in Kansas City. She works for She works for a barbecue place out of Cincinnati. She's got a software developer in San Diego, but she helps them with whatever they need. But she has a sole proprietorship. It's super easy for her to set up because it just is what it is. But we have to make sure we have our protection in place in a general liability sense, which I'll talk about in a second. We have to make sure we have protection to protect our personal assets, because again, in that world, there's no real differentiation between those when it comes to a claim or it comes to a lawsuit. So to make sure that you're protected, for anybody who's in this situation, you want to make sure you have certain protections in place, which we'll talk about in a second. But you want to make sure on the paper that you and your spouse are listed on the policy, on the business policy you have. And that way you get all of the protections that those insurance policies have. And that's usually the owner, the advisor, or the spouse who are involved in that business. But that's the sole proprietor. It's the most common, easiest to set up because it requires really zero paperwork besides maybe, talking to the Secretary of State in your state, but super easy to do. The next is the limited liability corporation, which is kind of the next step up. They look and will put together LLC. You see this a lot with lawyers and doctors' offices, amongst others who are in private practice. So they're there to shield personal assets in the event they get sued or there's a claim. So in this situation, when you are in a limited liability corporation, on your insurance documents, you'll actually see the LLC name listed on the policy itself. Your individual name won't be there, but that's okay, because each owner of the LLC within the ownership documents is covered under those policies. So you just want to make sure the name is listed. You don't individually have to be on there. But in those situations, you can't have you can't have the same assets for home and personal use. You have to separate those out because there is a line between business and professional use, or between business and personal use, I'm sorry. The next one is corporation. And we all think a big corporation is that large company, Macy's, McDonald's, you name the big company, it's out there. Whatever you pick it, anybody with tens of thousands of employees. But you, as a small business owner, can have your own corporation. My parents had an insurance agency and a Hallmark knickknack store, and they created a corporation over those two due to different reasons, whether it was tax reasons, it was protecting assets, it's protecting the company. So my dad served as the president, my mom served as the vice president. One was the treasurer and one was the secretary, and they had their own little corporation. So you can set your business up that way. Again, that's for you and whoever you're using to kind of assist you with that. But again, what this does is it shields your personal assets in the event a claim occurs. So when you get insurance, all of these things will factor into how the insurance is set up with your individual agent. Because again, the business and personal finances and assets are separated. And then finally, as a partnership or joint venture, it's very similar to the sole proprietorship. It's actually the least common we see. Most people two people who are not related, as in husband, wife, or spouse, I should say, as in spouse and spouse, get together and start a business. If it's outside of that, most people set up a limited liability corp or a corporation, but you can have a partnership that works similar to a sole proprietor, and you'd want to list each individual person on there. So those are the types of things that we see. But let's get into the coverages of what that's going to look like, or the different coverages you can possibly have. So what I've done here is I've kind of picked the most common types of coverages that you would want to see with your business, what you're looking for and what they do. I've got some examples here. With commercial insurance, I will say this: there are endorsements or policy packages for all manners of things. Every company is unique. So these insurance companies have different products for every company, and it is it can be all a la carte. With personal insurance, with home and auto, the base policies are really very standard, and you add different things in that you want to protect or don't protect. Commercial is much more a la carte, where it's like company A might have 3 policies and company B could have 20, just based on their risk preference and what they want. And then the pricing on those is much different, where in personal insurance, it's based on how much coverage in your zip code. In commercial insurance, each industry, each business has different ratings, and it is based on multitudes of factors: how many employees, where they're located, what they send out. So Everybody's business is completely different. That's why it's super easy to get a home or an auto quote. You can do it in 15 minutes or less. Just ask some of our competitors or ourselves, which we do. Or with a commercial, it takes time because the underwriters actually have to look at it up front to see how they're going to classify this risk. So let's start off with the most common one here. This is by far and away, it's the one everyone should have. It is the most basic one that's available, but it's arguably the most important. And this is the general liability insurance. This is kind of just the general, if you don't have anything at all, if you're starting a business and you're like, what do I need to get to protect myself? This is the first one that you get. This is the first one that you ask about, and then it goes from there. But this is general liability, and this is protection for things like slip and fall accidents. Someone comes on your property, trips over something, walking down the sidewalk, even if that's part of your business, and falls and hurts themselves, that is there to protect against that. Property damage. You take possession, you damage someone's property in the course of your business, you can get sued for that, or you can get a claim put against you for that. It's there for libel and slander. Maybe you say something about your competition you wish you'd have taken back and they catch wind of it and sue. There's protection on there against that. Damage to rented property. A lot of times you'll have to rent something in the course of your business, gets damaged. It's there to protect. So an example that we have here is very simple. I got a person here, John. He retired from the Army and saved up all of his money to start an automotive store with a specialty car wash. Someone comes in, gets their car washed, walks in the shop to buy some wipers and I don't know, something else for the vehicle. And they just got done cleaning the floors and boom, takes a slip and fall, dislocates a shoulder. We could take that same, maybe it's an icy day outside and they just came in for some supplies and they're coming in, you didn't get the walk shoveled in time or you didn't get enough salt down and they slip and fall. All of these things can be protected against through general liability. But this is by far the most, this is the most important thing you can do to protect yourself, your family, your business assets, and if you're a sole proprietor, your personal assets from many claims that are out there, including this. So general liability, extremely important to have on the policy. Now, the good news is that the insurance companies, especially a lot of the ones out there, have developed a policy that will take general liability and add in some extras that you need as well to kind of take the guesswork out of what you need. So instead of going through each individual one of these, they just put it in and said, hey, we're going to take the most important general liability. We're going to pepper some other things in here. And then if you want to add more, you can add more to it. So the business owner's policy or BOP policy, and any of you who are out there in business right now, you probably have a BOP policy. It's probably what you walked into your insurance agent and they said, I need a policy. They said, oh, we got a BOP for you. You were like, what is that? It's a business owner's policy. So they've tried to take it and structure the different business things that you need. So they took the most important general liability, they threw that in. Then they added different things like business income coverage. So for those of you who have a business, if your business is damaged or it has to cease operations, they have to quit operating because of claims. What happens? You lose out on that money. In the business world or in the business insurance world, you need a rider or you need an endorsement or a separate policy to cover that. And the BOP usually has that on there. That is business income coverage needs to be on there. So that way you can continue to get money or income coming in while the claim is being made with your policy and while the repairs are being done. And I'll take my parents as another example of this. In their little Hallmark store, it was right on Main Street. People parked up, they drove away. They pulled up, they backed out. Well, I had one lady who came in to get her knickknacks and her Hallmark ornaments and whatever she wanted. And she went to drive backwards to back out of the spot, but she put the car in drive and drove right through the window. There was glass, there was debris everywhere. So my parents, they had to turn in a claim. Now the insurance companies are going to sort out who's all at fault, but they had to put in a claim. And one thing that they put in there was for business income coverage. And they had that on their policy. And the reason they needed it is because they had to close the store down for 3-4 days while it got clean because there was glass in everything. So during the repairs, they put that in. The income continued to flow so they could pay the workers, their workers, while those repairs were being fixed. So very important for a number of reasons if a claim occurs. Building coverage. Those are usually built in, but again, it's a la carte. So there's ways that you could potentially move that out. With building coverage, your building is damaged due to a tornado, fire, whatever the case may be. You want to be able to repair that. So that is there for coverage for the building. It's just like it would be on home insurance. And then business personal property coverage, that's the contents of the home. And again, unlike a home policy where all of this stuff is built in, on a business or a BOP policy, that's what they've tried to do here, but you want to make sure that's included. If you have any business personal property, and that's going to be things like computers, desks, chairs, plants, fake plants, pictures on the wall, whatever that may be that's owned by the business, that's what a BOP policy is going to help cover those items. So we've got those there. I normally pause for questions, but we'll kind of keep rolling here and we'll gather if there's any at the end. So those are the basics. I'll go through some more endorsements at the end here, but those are the kind of the basic. If I was a small business, especially if I had storefront, I would go in and ask for what's on the BOP policy, make sure it's got everything you need, and then some other endorsements that will follow here in a second. Now for businesses, but if you're getting employees, even one employee, you're going to want to ask your insurance agent about workers' compensation insurance. So workers' compensation insurance is just that. It is there in case employees are injured in the course of their duty or on the job. And this is not here to replace health insurance. It's not what this is for. This is here for physical injury on the job. It's required in most states, and I didn't look at all the states' requirements, but I do believe it is required in most, if not all. And failure to purchase this if you have employees may result in fines or penalties depending on the state. But what it is simply there for is if your employee is injured on the job is to help pay for medical, pharmaceutical, and other healthcare costs. So it helps also to pay for a portion of the worker's salary while they are out of work. But again, it is not a substitute for health insurance. It is simply there to ensure that if there is an employee is injured, you as the employer don't get hit in the pocketbooks. It's going to come out of the workers' compensation insurance. Very important to have. If you have employees, you need to get this or you need to look into it, I'd say right away. Now, for those of you who are in the job or in the profession of giving advice, such as what I do, I'm not only in this profession, but I also have a license in another profession. Professional liability is important. So if you're a tax preparer, a consultant, you are a insurance agent, doctors and lawyers have to have this. That's called malpractice in that world. But professional liability, E&O insurance is another term for it, what's called errors and omissions, but it's all professional liability. So, stockbrokers, hairstylists, counselors, anybody who gives advice to a client or anybody who provides really a service like this needs some form of professional liability. It's there to protect if you as a stockbroker have a small financial advisor office, you're independent, and you give advice to a client and it just goes south and they get mad and they sue you. Myself as an insurance agent, if I give the wrong advice or I fail to put something on a policy for you and I didn't advise you like, you should probably get that, didn't advise of enough coverage, it can come back on me. I want to make sure I'm protected against that. An example of this is, take the hairstylist, because a lot of people don't think about that. But you go in to do something to someone's hair, you do the color thing and it just fries out their hair, makes it a completely different color, completely damages it. Maybe, I've seen some hairstyles that, the damage is permanent. Something scars them, builds them. Maybe you're doing a face, a gal I knew had a face mask put on, an orange peel face mask, and ended up burning her skin. She ended up suing over that because she caused permanent damage to that person. So having that protection in place, making sure it doesn't come out of the business or your personal pocketbook is important. But anyone who gives advice, anyone who provides a level of direction for a client, it's important to have some kind of professional liability. And most of you who are in those professions know you need it. So it's not a mystery, shall I say, but it is very important to have. And then finally, one that again gets missed is business auto coverage. And we get a lot of calls on this because people with varying businesses use vehicles. They sometimes use personal vehicles. Some businesses will purchase a vehicle for use in the business. So this can get really, really sticky. Those of you who are real estate agents, this is a big one we get with real estate agents. They own their vehicle. They've got their Cadillac. They've got their vehicle. They take clients around it, but they own it personally. Are they protected? And the answer is, hell, maybe. Under their personal auto insurance, they are protected as personal use if they own their own vehicle. But once they use it in business, that's where it gets sticky. Now, if they're just going to and from a showing, to and from a workplace, that's covered. That's like me going to work every day. But if someone who uses their personal vehicle uses it to take clients around on a regular basis, uses it to take parts, maybe they're a part deliverer, things like that, they have to make sure that the personal policy, they need to check with their agent or their policy, but they need to make sure there's a business use endorsement on the policy. And all personal auto insurers have that business endorsement. So you don't necessarily need to get a commercial coverage for it. If it's a personal use vehicle that you occasionally use for business, you want to make sure, though, that you have that business use endorsement on there. So if you are taking a client around, there's not a question of whether they're covered or not. But again, it's used for transportation only. It can be kept with personal. And the question they're going to ask is are you making money using the vehicle? So that's going to be the delineation between the two. If you put a sign or you wrap your vehicle on your car, that immediately moves it into a corporation or a business use, and a lot of personal insurance policies will not accept that, and they will make you write a commercial policy on that. So signage on it is also a key indicator of whether this can be a personal business use, or personal vehicle used as business, or whether this needs to be a commercial use policy only. And signage is a big key for that. So those of you who have a vehicle with a sign on it, if you're involved in an accident and that sign is on there, there is a possibility your personal auto insurance will not cover. So you're going to want to make sure you cover that or clear that up with your personal auto insurance agency, because each company does handle that a little differently, but that's been my experience. And I've worked with 20 to 30 different insurers over the years in my capacity in some form. If the vehicle is owned by the corporation or the business, your LLC, your partnership, you can use it for personal transportation, but if the owner is the business, it's got to go on the commercial policy. So that also determines where that needs to be. If you're on the owner, on the title, registered with the state, personal vehicle, it's going to go there, and it can go either way between personal or commercial. But if that vehicle is owned by the corporation, it needs to be insured under the corporation, and that will go under a commercial policy. So you can still use it for personal transportation. I mean, my parents did that for years. Again, they owned a business. They put the vehicles under the corporation. They used them for business. They used them for personal, but they were insured under the corporation itself. Now, there are vehicles that also can be used in the business of taxi, tow truck drivers, delivery drivers. Those all need to go on a commercial policy. So if you've got a truck and you use it for a tow service, that's going to be a commercial policy because of what that truck is used for. If you have a delivery vehicle that you use, maybe there's lab testing companies that run around and pick up labs from clinics, and they've got signage on it. It's owned by the company or used in that. You're going to need a commercial policy on that. Probably the hybrid of that, and I don't think this gets into the business that we want to talk about today, is like Uber and Lyft drivers. That's going to go, if that's just what you do and what you're looking to do, that's going to go on the personal property or the personal policy. But you need to make sure the company supports Uber and Lyft, and they'll have a separate endorsement on there, because there is a weird time where it's personal use. You have someone in the car you're taking from the airport, but it's that in-between time that you're waiting that there's no coverage for. Most of the companies back in 2010, when this all came out, insurance companies ran hard and fast from Uber or Lyft drivers, but now they've all put endorsements on there because they found they can charge $1 or $2 for it and provide the coverage there. But yeah, a lot of it just depends on where the vehicle's registered. Is it registered to you or the business? That's going to determine personal or commercial. And if it's registered to you, then it's the use and how often you use it for personal, business, and what you use it for. So those were the main ones that I wanted to discuss on those. And again, this topic is so broad and so vast. I'm trying not to go through it too fast, but we could spend hours going through it. So it's one of those deals too, that if there's a lot of good questions or something we want to dial in on later on, I can always put together something different, was hoping to bring on my some of my business experts to be in here and probably look to do that if we do one of these again the next time. But I'm going to finish this out here by going through the next coverages. And I'm going to go briefly through these because again, this is a la carte. There are endorsements for everything. There are coverages for a lot of things within the world of commercial or business insurance that you should consider. So business identity theft coverage, that's just as it sounds. It's business identity theft coverage. What this is it's coverage if you decide, maybe I'll just give an example of this. So identity thieves, basically there were an example of this is two individuals had a business. They decided to dissolve the business and they closed it up, and do individual projects. But what happened is thieves came in and they reinstated that business and filed a tax return on which they claimed $140,000 credit. So essentially they stole the identity of the business owners, reinstituted the business, and they basically claimed $140,000 in tax credits, which now the IRS wanted their money back. So these two individuals, if they had, because they were doing their own thing, but they kept business identity theft coverage in place, they were able to help refund that or get that, turn a claim in against that, where if they didn't have that, they didn't. So essentially it's like personal identity theft. If anyone steals your identity, makes IRS claims, makes claims, takes out loans, whatever it may be, it's there to protect. But again, unlike personal policies, where a lot of personal policies will have this coverage on there for say home insurance, or that you can add it in very quickly, this you've got to ask specifically for it. So having that conversation with a licensed insurance rep who deals with business is important. Employment practices liability. This again, this is where this gets into like sexual harassment claims. This gets into different practices that you have. So if you have employees, it gets outside of that workers' compensation claim. It gets into areas where your practices come into question. Did your HR, maybe you don't have an HR department, but did your HR policies allow for a hostile work environment? Did it allow for sexual harassment to occur? Or at least that's the charge. This is there to protect you in the event that your employment practices are come into question. If you are a sole proprietor and you're your only person, it might not be as important because you don't have employees. But if you do have employees, it's important to look into that to make sure you're covered. Again, you have workers' comp in case there's injury on the job. This is in case there is there's injury, or there's shall I say, injury between the employees due to harassment or other claims. Let's see here. The next one, directors and office liability. This is going to be for your nonprofits. This is going to be for those who have a board of directors. And this is to absolve the board of directors of any liability due to the decisions or claims against the nonprofit. You see this with nonprofits. You see this with homeowners associations. If a director or an officer of a nonprofit or homeowners association was personally responsible for the nonprofit, at least from a financial standpoint, you wouldn't get a lot of people who would volunteer for it. Having this coverage in place, if you have a nonprofit or you're thinking about starting up one, is important to make sure to protect your officers in the event that they are sued or the nonprofit or homeowners association is sued. Hired non-owned auto coverage, that gets into, say you hire an employee, you've got them running a delivery, or you've got them running and doing things on the job in their personal vehicle. So if you got anybody who's running around town for you in their personal vehicle for your business, you're going to want to look into something called hired non-owned auto coverage. It's a mouthful as well, but then it's again to protect you in the business in the event that your employee damages their vehicle or someone else's vehicle while on the job. Fire legal liability. This is case fire occurs to property that is in your possession but is not owned by you. This is it's a liability, so it's usually something where you're responsible for someone else's property that's damaged by fire. So you'll want to check into that if you have that situation. Data breach, that's in case someone breaches your company and steals your customer list, your emails, credit cards, whatever you may keep on file. That helps protect against that, and that falls in line with cyber liability as well, where in this day and age, There's a lot of companies out there. They're on the internet. We're all out there on the internet. You have to have a presence on the internet. And there is liability waiting out there, both from the data breach side as well as liability that you are, a business you're conducting on there. So these are some other coverages. It's just the tip of the iceberg with what is out there and what your agent can do. So other types of policies are available. Make sure your name is on the policy or the corporation's name, and just know what your exposures are. And that's why it's important to run through and talk to an agent, talk to your agent, call a reputable commercial company. We have agents standing by to answer those questions. We have a great commercial team. They're there to educate first, get an idea of what your business is, get a snapshot of what your risks are, and then have that conversation of, here's the coverages that we think are important. What do you think? What are you looking to cover? And then, of course, it gets into cost from there. But they're there to have that question. And if anybody has that question at all, feel free to reach out. That is a direct number right there, the 800-295-9649. That is a direct number to our commercial team. And again, they are there to answer questions for you. They are there to, you pick up the phone. This is what I've got. This is what my business does. Is there any holes that I have? That website, if you'd like to request a quote, we've got a specific website set up just for you. You go on, throw the information in, they'll reach out and contact you. But if not, at a minimum, talk to your agent. It's best to review your policy, whether it's your home and auto policy or your commercial policy. Review that every couple of years, because your business changes, it's dynamic, your needs change, and the insurance laws and rules change. It changes all the time. So I would just encourage everyone to go out, review their policies, and talk to a commercial agent that can help with these things. So other than that, I will open it up and have any questions. I hope there was some information there. Again, it was a broad view. I didn't want to get into any specifics today because I wasn't quite sure of the audience, but I want to make sure we got some information out there. Any questions I have for you or that you guys have, go ahead and shoot them at me right now and we'll go from there. Let's see. I think we've got, I think you're muted if you're.
Sorry about that. So Kenneth Fields asked for e-commerce insurance to be protected from chargeback fraud. Kenneth, did you make it back in? I know you were just coming back in from the waiting room. Are you back online with us?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
Okay.
We have an e-commerce site, and I just launched that site, and I thought I was doing business in good faith and ran into someone who likes to do fraud for a living. And so there was annoying chargebacks, and I've taken care of the site. Is back alive now, but I want to be able to be protected against chargebacks as we put this site out to the masses.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's, and as you can tell, I mean, unfortunately, gone are the days of small businesses being in a downtown and you dealt with theft, you dealt with fire, you dealt with the local things. Now that like you said, you've got an e-commerce business, you are now out to everyone, everywhere in the world. And unfortunately, that brings criminals everywhere in the world to your doorstep. So yes, that's where it's important. Those last two items here, the data breach and cyber liability, those are two items that I would go and discuss that. If you have an agent that you've set up, do you have any, I should ask this, do you have any liability or any commercial insurance that you've set up thus far with anybody?
Yes, I have insurance through the Hartford.
Okay, perfect. So what I would do is whomever set that up for you, and that is one of the companies that we work with as well. So that is something that we're familiar with. But if you go back to the agent that you spoke with and say, hey, this is the scenario that occurred. What are there what policies or what can I add to my protection that would help protect me against this very scenario? As I roll this out, like you said, to the masses, what can I do to protect myself against data breach? Because they're going to come for your customer list and any credit cards you have. They're also going to come and, they're going to try and do chargebacks. They're going to try and take whatever money they can. And how can you best protect against that? So because business is so a la carte, you want to make sure that you slide those policies in there. If you have some more, general questions on it, on what that would look like, again, because we sell that, feel free to call the number that's there, and Dale or Elizabeth on our commercial team they'd be able to dive deeper into that, and just make sure to answer exactly what you would need and what you do. Again, yes, our company is here to sell policies, but more importantly, we're here to educate. And we're here to make sure that you know what you're doing, because we feel that we're going to provide that service. And then in the hopes, again, down the road of earning your business. But most importantly, it's getting that education out there so you know what to ask for. But your agent whoever you worked with there, you tell them your situation, they'll be able to help add that protection in. And now, will it protect against everything you're facing? That's the thing about insurance, is you try to mitigate as much risk as you can based on it, but they'll be able to tell you what options you have so you can best protect your finances and your company's finances in the event that occurs again.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we don't have any other questions that are in the chat. If anybody has a question that they would like to ask, you can either put it in the chat or feel free to ask that now. One thought that I wanted to include here, Bryce, and you mentioned looking at your insurance products as a strategic assets for your business. When we start looking for these things, it's one of those things that you need to have, and you want to make sure you have all the things that you're supposed to have for all the reasons you've already clearly outlined here. But it's also one of the things that you want to spend as little on it as possible as you can. And that's one of the things that, and thank you for mentioning Dale McCrary's last name, because he's the one that we work with directly. But and I explained that to him. It's like, insurance is one of those things I want to have. I want to have the coverage and want to be there, but I don't need anything extra. So especially as running a nonprofit, but every business is the same. You want to keep your costs of doing business as low as you can keep them while still being protected and covered. And that's one of the things that I was very grateful for, because you're not providing the insurance policy directly. Dale was helping me find the various companies that provide these different products. And so for those of you that are here that may have a good relationship with an existing broker that represents a particular insurance company, it still may be worth looking at some of these things, because you can the disparity between getting a simple bond for a grant that we were issued. The cost was dramatically different, like within hundreds of percentage points different from one insurance provider to the next. And so taking a look at what coverages you have, what coverages you need, what you're paying for those, and what they might be out there is something that is always a good idea to revisit from time to time, because you might be surprised that you could save some money and still be protected.
Well, and with that too, because commercial runs so different, and that's a good point. Commercial runs so different than personal property in this sense. If you get a home policy or an auto policy on your personal side, and you write that policy, it will continue to go until one of two things happens. You cancel the policy personally because you don't need it anymore or don't want it. Actually, one of three things. You cancel it because you don't want it, or one, you stop paying, two, you stop paying on it, and that cancels it, because eventually when the money runs out, the policy will just cease because you stop paying on it. Or number three, there is an underwriting issue where the company goes, oh, we can't take that risk anymore, so at renewal, we're going to non-renew it. But essentially, you pay, it just keeps going in perpetuity until you don't need it anymore. With commercial insurance, that is something that every year you'll get a notice from your commercial saying, hey, we need to re-up your policy, sometimes it's fill out this questionnaire or answer these questions, because risk, what was that? I'm sorry. Oh, because risk can change. And so with that, every year you're going to get a notice, and then because your risk factors change with that company, the pricing can swing. So do you want to go through the hassle, and I say it's a hassle because it is, of talking to 5 different agents every year? No, but that yearly reminder is a good way to say, I might shop this again. My price might be looks like it might be going up. I'm going to send this to another company and take a look. It's just good to review that, because yes, as small business owners, let's face it. You've heard of it being insurance poor. It's possible. I may work for an insurance company, but I can tell you, I don't want to pay any more than I have to on it. Neither do you. And so making sure you shop around, take a look. That's why we work with multiple companies. We work with folks like the Hartford, Nationwide, bigger companies. Lockton's one that I can think of off the top of my head, Burns and Wilcox. There's a whole host of companies we reach out to when we try to find policies, because one, we want to make sure you're getting the best deal. And two, if the company we have you with this year is not the best deal, we might have someone that we brought on or that's lowered their prices. So always
Froze up a little bit there for a second, Bryce. I didn't hear the last few things you said.
Oh, basically, I think what the message was don't be afraid to shop it, because you don't want to be insurance poor and you do want to look for the best deal. And that's why we work with multiple companies, is we try to find the best deal. We respect that, and we want to find the best deal for you, because that is what we do. And that's what I think most agents want to do, is they want to make sure your needs are being met, but at the same time, we're all conscious that you got to pay the bills at the end of the day.
Okay, are there any additional questions for Bryce?
I see there's a question that popped in about the hired non-owned auto coverage.
Okay.
Hey, Bryce, this is David with
Hey, David.
RR Construction. Hey, we're opening a new office, and I have a sales business development person starting this week, actually. And initially, I was going to have him start with his own vehicle for the first month or two.
Mm-hmm.
Going with the hired non-owned coverage is the best option, correct?
That's what it's. I mean, everyone's situation is unique, and it's hard for me to say 100% that's what you would need. But I would say that sounds like it. If you're going to have that, your employee go job to job in a business capacity, but they're using their own personal vehicle, having that sounds like the coverage that would probably best fit what you're looking for. And again, I always preface, talk to your agent. Make sure that that's the case, because their agent might go, no, I've got something better for you, or I've got something that'll cover that, or it's built into your policy that you already have. So there could be something that because each company writes those a little differently. There's not a standard form sometimes that they use. But that sounds like what it would be, is if they're using their vehicle and you're having them run from place to place, that does sound like that would probably be your best bet, to just make sure you're covering your 6 in the event something goes wrong.
And then I assume after hours, once he's off the clock, then it will just revert back to his own personal auto coverage.
Yeah, that's the thing with that. They're on personal time. That is, now I'm no lawyer, but as I understand, as they're on personal time, they're not in your employ. That you're not going to be, you would not be held responsible for that, because you can't help what somebody does at 2 a.m. You're not working for them. But if they're at job site X and you're like, hey, take this over to job site Y, and they're in their transportation, they get in an accident, that person gets a lawyer, sniffs around, is like, oh, you were working. They're going to see bigger dollars in you than they are in that person.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any additional questions? Okay. So I guess we'll give you a few minutes back in your day, folks. So if you have any questions that you want to follow up with for Bryce, or anything in particular wasn't covered today, or you want to talk to the folks at AFI, put the 800 number and the specific URL, afi.org/NaVOBA, in the chats there. Also, I put the link to the NaVOBA YouTube channel. We'll make this video live. It'll be listed up there. We'll have it on the website, but the YouTube channel has the whole archive of all of the other Marching Forward Monday sessions, including the BB Showcase, corporate spotlights, and then the as well as the EDU sessions. And so once again, I wanted to thank Bryce Palmer and thank Armed Forces Insurance. We are very grateful to have Armed Forces Insurance supportive of NaVOBA as a corporate ally, as well as helping us with our actual own insurance products. And so thank you for all of that. And if there's anything else, feel free to reach out to us. And if not, Bryce, thank you again. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. And as a former small business owner myself, I know. So I know the good, bad, the ugly of it all. And best of luck to all of you, and anything that we can do to help, shoot us a line. If there's a question you need answered later, send it over and get it over, they'll get it over to me and we'll get it answered, or just give us a call here and we'll be happy to take care of that. But thanks again for your time, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.